Hello everybody and welcome back to the second half of the Liam McGarry series. How are we doing?
I'm good, mate. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad. So last week's episode, or 10 minutes ago, we were obviously talking about how you come to be in a wheelchair.
Yep.
And obviously your work ethic, determination and just your general attitude, to be fair. I want to get into, obviously, now, we did touch on it slightly, with obviously your sporting achievements and, future goals and all the rest of it like that. So with you, when did that become, sort of very apparent that this is the way you wanted to go?
So as I said earlier, I went to the Spinal Games, just started training in a little gym in Bournemouth called Stokewoods and just started knocking around. But it was when really, he's a man I owe quite a lot to, Dan Bohr. He's the head of S&C at Bournemouth University. And it was when I started getting in with him every day, every morning, same time. Me and him would have a couple of hours just shifting tin. And it was when I really started to build that with him that I was like, hang on a minute, I'm quite good at this. We was putting kilos and kilos of weight onto the bar every week, and it was just like, yeah, this could be pretty fruitful. But that was probably that was when I really started to fall in love with it. But then I guess when I was like, this is it, like this is the sport, this is the discipline, this is the career I want to achieve, everything I want to achieve in, was probably when I moved I left Bournemouth University, and Dan sort of ignited the fire and started me on this journey and started build the foundations for me to go and take on the world effectively. But when I guess the second point in time when that decision was made was when I become part of the world-class program here at Loughborough, and become a part of the British Weightlifting world-class program. And because then it was just really like, for me, then it was like I can make a good living out of this. I can make a career out of it. I can see the world. I can represent my country, and I can have a career in sport, which is something I've always dreamed of wanting. And I think the reason why powerlifting, and not many people will get this when I say this, but when you acquire a life-changing injury, when you've been able-bodied for so long, I still compete with able-bodied people.
Yeah. So
this sport allowed me to walk into any gym and be the biggest dog in that gym, and people might say, "Oh, that's a little bit big-headed, that's a bit egotistical," but you know what? I love that.
Yeah.
Because you know what? I love competing with everyone. It doesn't, as I said earlier, it doesn't matter to me if you're in a wheelchair, if you're 10 foot tall, you're 5 foot tall. I couldn't care less.
Yeah, it puts everyone on an even playing field.
Exactly. If I can compete against you, I'm going to bloody compete against you.
Yeah.
And that's what it's like. And I love that. And it's just like it's like an identity in a way. Like people, a lot of people is just like, oh, isn't it? I went from Liam, how was it? The conversations, which weren't my bag, to when's the next comp? How you doing at the minute? You're still number one in the country, blah blah blah. And it's just like I live off that. Yeah. I love it. Like I go to places and it's like, oh, you're the weightlifter.
Yeah.
And it's just like, yeah, and it's that no one sees the wheelchair. Do you know what I mean?
It's like you were saying earlier about people's perceptions and stuff like that as well. Like having that as that is your thing. Like you powerlift. That's their go-to rather than Liam's in a wheelchair. Liam's a powerlifter.
100%, mate. And that was a massive thing for me. And as I said, I can go anywhere and compete with anyone, and it puts me on a playing field where, if I need to settle anything, we'll just get in the gym. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's and it's just a passion. It just become an obsession. It's a passion. It's like everything is secondary to my training, and because it's a little. I've never really said this out loud before, but I've got a little on the hashtags on my Instagram. The last one's always the comeback, because one day I'm going to complete that comeback. One day I'm going to be fully satisfied that I've defied every single odd and I've overcome every single thing, and I'm standing in a place in the world and wherever it is, and I'm going, do you know what?
Yeah,
I've done all right. Do you know what I mean? And this is my way of coming back, because like I dial it down and I dampen the importance of it sometimes, but I was at rock bottom. Like for a period when I had my spinal cord injury, there was a little period, albeit short, but there was a period where I didn't want to wake up the next morning. Do you know what I mean? I didn't want to be this person. I didn't want to be in this life. And I think a huge part of me sitting here now, feeling like I'm on top of the world and I can go toe to toe with anyone, it is my career and is my powerlifting. And there's something I'm tremendously grateful for, but also tremendously hungry to achieving. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I have them silent battles when I'm at the gym. Like, I'll usually do weights most days, and then if I've got time, I'll do a 5 or 10k run most days as well. But when I get on the treadmill, that's when if I've seen that someone else has just got on, I usually go against a male. If he's just got on, I'm like, right, I'm going to stay on until he gets off. I have no idea how far he's going to go. I don't know what he's doing, hill clock, whatever he's doing. But I say, right, I'll set it, and my thing as well, when I'm on the treadmill, I never go less. So if I start on 10 kilometers an hour, then I go up to 12, I can't go below 12 now. That's it. So if I set my stall at 12, and then I'm running next to Matey Boy, and he's doing an hour in the tank, I'm going to be, I'm going to be hooped. But again, I'm like yourself, where I haven't got that quit. I'm like, my legs will stop working on me before I go, I'm too tired now. Like, my body will give up before I do. And it's the same. Like, I don't tell anyone. I just, in my head, I'm just like, right, I'm going to beat him. Or I'll try and be the last person on all the treadmills. And it's just like them little battles, I think, as well, that people need to have. And it's probably that people have a massive lack of that in their life. And like you were saying earlier about when stuff gets hard, people just sort of give up. And it's because most of the life is, it's very easy, and you can just go through, and you can go through life with no obstacles and no hardship.
I think also as well, it's like we live in a day and age now where almost losing is celebrating. Like, I know there's things,
participation medals.
Yeah, like participation medals, and almost sort of they've taken the individual parts of sports days away, and they're making it team events now because you're incorporating a weaker kid, which is all well and good, but then you're also taking away from the stronger kids in that aspect, and that was never, my biggest fear to this day is not how people view me. It is being mediocre in a sport that I've got the potential to achieve something in. And by something big, Paralympic medals, world medals, that I've had the potential there from the start. I've had a little bit of a rocky road last year, but the potential's still there. And my biggest fear is not reaching that. And I will do every single thing I can do to make sure, I tap into that potential and achieve what I set out. But it's like crazy because I didn't start playing sport after my injury to get to the Paralympics. Do you know what I mean? I started playing sport as a reason to live, as like finding a reason again. Do you know what I mean? A reason to getting up in the morning. And that's how I started. And then it wasn't until I got good at something that the Paralympics become a real opportunity. So it's like you can't start by waking up in the hospital bed a day after an injury and going, "No, I'm going to go to the Paralympics," because it's not that easy.
No.
It was all about being happy again, getting back out there, finding a bit of competition, adrenaline, finding them avenues again, and then see where it takes me, sort of thing.
So when you were obviously lifting, and then do you have to like hit a certain standard, or are you just going to competitions and they're sort of regional competitions, or like I have no idea on the powerlifting circuit like either way. So how do you sort of step up each time?
So obviously there's when you get on like as at an amateur level, it's just like
you just rock up at meets.
You sign up, you rock up, and then it's down to the coaches and talents, ID staff and whatnot, to see something in you, I guess, and create on, because there's different pathways. So there's like a talent pathway,
right, that
is pre-world class program, which is like, you've got something, we're not quite sure yet, let's see what you're about. If you show the development but when you get into the business end of it, when you get to the world class program, you can't stand still. Like you get a target every single year. There's a big matrix from A to F, and you only get a certain amount of time on each one. And sort of my head of performance will, Tom Whitaker, who's also my coach, he'll set out a matrix of like the standard of the world, and then
where you sit in
get
that.
a particular weight for every single stage of the matrix, and it's like you can't stand still. Everyone thinks, I mean, and it is. There are moments in time, like sports is about moments in time, right?
Yeah.
But what a lot of people don't see, the general public, the people watching Instagram and watching competitions, they don't see the stuff all athletes go through.
Yeah.
Like it is an unforgiving career, and I think that's one thing I love, and I hate it, but I love it.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? You can't stand still. The minute you stand still, someone's right behind you taking your spot away from you, or you're just falling away from the field. And it's them little things every day that people don't see are the things that make athletes, not the moments. Like, because essentially we can have a competition once every 4 months, and you go from years and months of training comes down to 3 moments in time that last about 30 seconds each one. So a minute you train, I got the World Championships in just about 4 weeks now, and I haven't had a competition since September of last year.
Right.
So I've trained from September to 4 weeks time, the 16th of August when I fly out, for a minute and a half on the platform. And that's what a lot of people don't get. They think, you're loving it, you're an athlete, you just train all the time. But I wish it was that easy, because you can sort of quickly waste 8 months with a bad 1.5 minutes. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, with you powerlifting, like the exertion on your body and stuff, you're dialing in, your nutrition, you're watching what you're eating, your sleep, everything like that is all, that's a daily occurrence. You're having to go to the gym, for hours on end, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
Doing, your heavy sets and stuff with big breaks in between. And it's all that sort of stuff. And it's the same with people with like good, like 6 packs and like a sort of like a CrossFit fit thing. People just look at them and be like, I can have that body. And it's like, you could with the dedication that person's put in. It's not an overnight thing, and that's why a lot of people, especially in our society these days, like it's easy to grab a McDonald's, it's easy to grab a KFC or whatever, rather than cooking. And it's like a lot of these young women these days, like none of them can cook, and it's like, what are you bringing to the table? Me, as being single, it's something that I've learned. I'm like, I can cook, and like a lot of these girls that I'm seeing and stuff, I'm like, fucking, you can't. How do you look after yourself? But and it's like you say, and it's people just see obviously on social media your 30-second clip of you chest pressing whatever you're doing or at that moment in time, and it's just it's easy, but it's not, and it's. And what about injuries for you? Have you had many injuries?
To be fair, sporting wise, I haven't had any injuries at all, really. Like I get like dodgy shoulders now and again, but that's just a part and parcel of pushing in a wheelchair, then benching in a gym, then on the handbike, then my cardio. It's all the same movement. But in terms of sporting injuries, I've done all right. Like touch wood, I've done well, but. Yeah, I had a period from December 2022 to December 2023 where I just had, I can't remember off the top of my head, but I think I clocked up about 20 odd surgeries in that time, just on different parts of my body. So that was just, that was a tough year. But it was but as in terms of, but we move heaven and high water to try and prevent that. So I have my physio and soft tissue therapy every day, not every day, but weekly. And I'm always on with my nutritionist, making sure I'm putting it, because that's probably the biggest change I've made since I've been becoming a world class athlete to my whole life. Really, like I thought I knew nutrition.
Yeah.
But I quickly realised how much I didn't know it, and since I've changed that. it's opened so many doors just through them avenues. Do you know what I mean? But it's such a massive thing. And Megan, my nutritionist, is just she's changed my life in so many ways from that sense. But so it is that you have to come with a complete package. Like you can have the most talented athlete in the world, but if they're not tying all the ends together, that you're sure you are going to get someone that'll go past you, and someone will overtake you, and someone will do the 1% much better than you will. So yeah, and it comes back to what I said in last week's episode. Like you can be anything you want to be, like, but as long as people look at me and say I'm the hardest working and I've not left a stone unturned, and then I'll be happy. Do you know what I mean? And that's the way I carry myself through.
Yeah, definitely. Obviously, you touched on your nutrition there. What does a day in the life of Liam eating? What does that look like?
Yeah, so like pre-world class program, I was packing away about 8,000 calories a day, like no problem, no stress, just eating.
Right. What would that be made up of? What are you eating to get there?
Huge meals, mate. Just like, so for example, like one of the most like shocking things I remember my nutritionist, I used to do about 400 grams of cooked weight pasta.
Fucking hell.
And just like 3 chicken breasts, mix it all together and just smash it
down.
And it was just like, and I thought I was doing like amazing things, and I thought, I'm just gonna get really big and strong. And then I come on World Class Break, I met Megan, and I'm the strongest I've ever been. I'm about 26 kg lighter than when I come onto the program, and I'm eating about 4,000 calories a day less.
Right.
And that's what a lot of people get lost on. It's about what you're putting in the body and what times of the day you're putting it in. So it's like, if I'm training at 3 o'clock, there's no point me having my big meals at 9 a.m. in the morning and 10 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? That's no point, because you're not affecting your session. So what I tend to do now, I'm usually about 3 big meals a day, man, and maybe 1 or 2 smaller meals. But I'll wake up first thing in the morning. I'll have a meal that's about 300 calories.
What sort of time's your alarm going off?
My alarm's going off at 8 o'clock in the morning.
Right.
Alarm's going off at 8 o'clock in the morning.
Late start, but that's
fine. Late start. Go have a little bit of a lay-in, mate. About 8 o'clock in the morning, the alarm goes off. To be fair, though, I brought that way forward as well, reluctantly. But because for me, I sleep. My best sleep is from like, I nod off and I'm getting good sleep from about 4 a.m. So that's probably one of the things I'm working on still. But yeah, it's back at 8 o'clock now. So I wake up 8 o'clock and then I'll get out on the balcony at home and I'll have a first meal. It's usually a bowl of blueberry shredded wheats, which is about 300 calories. About 90 grams of wheat is about 300 calories. So I'll get that down, and then just before I go to the gym, I'll get in about 900 calories, which is usually 4 slices of toast and 5 eggs.
Right.
And that'll be just before I go to the gym. And then when I get home from the gym, I'll have a steak. I'll have steaks and 400 grams of white rice.
What sort of steak?
Sirloin. If I could have a choice, sirloin's my choice.
Okay.
Yeah, not really. I don't really. I'm not too adventurous for my steaks, but yeah, sirloin, salt, pepper, and that'll do me. And then I'll smash that in as soon as I get in from the gym, and then dinner will usually consist of some form of bread, in terms of, but not more bread, like pitters.
Right.
So I'll have like mince, pitters, a bit of sweet potato, avocado, all that stuff in them. And then before I go to bed, I'll usually smash like 4 or 5 different fruits.
Why do you have fruit before bed?
Just to get it in, mate.
Right, okay.
Because my nutritionist is massive on
that's what she
fruit
says.
and veg. No, not necessarily because that's what she says, but I see the importance of it, like vitamins, all stuff like that. But I'm rubbish at eating it throughout the day, so I'm like, if I get it all at once, I've got it in. There's my 5 a day, bosh. I have broccoli with every meal, broccoli in meals, like veg in meals, but. Yeah, again, it's one of them things like, it don't actually make that much of a difference, but it does. Like it does, and it's that good. And I have that mixed with 2 protein yogurts before I go to bed and smash that down.
Do you not find that with the fructose from the fruit, that obviously it's a sugar rush? Do you not find that disturbs your sleep at all? No.
Nah. Usually it doesn't. It's just because I don't know. No, I don't. I'm never in bed like, oh my God. Do you know what I mean? No, it's all good. But yeah, that usually goes in of an evening. Usually the only time I get a rush is if I use caffeine before a session and the session's a bit too late in the day and I'm like, oh. But yeah, that's the only really time that sort of stuff impacts me. I guess the thing that impacts my sleep the most is my brain, mate. I can think.
Yeah.
Like, do you know what I mean? I'm capable of thinking, and I guess that's what I'm usually either thinking too far in the future or too far in the behind. And I think that's one thing I'm working on, is just trying to be here and now, worrying about what's going on right now, because there's enough to worry about today and tomorrow and the next day and the last couple of days without me worrying about something end of qualification in 10 months' time or things like that. Do you know what I mean? And that is something I'm working on. And yeah, it's a work in progress. But yeah, a day of eating usually is about 3,050 calories now.
Right.
And I'm probably the strongest I've ever been, and compared to a time where I thought I was the strongest I've ever been and was consuming about 6,000 or 7,000. So like, it just goes back to like, as important it is to work hard, do your stuff, like I've said earlier, have your due diligence. You also need the people around you with the knowledge that you haven't got, because in no means, like, I've done the work in terms of I've had the discipline to limit my food, I've had the discipline to change my food, I've had the discipline to chip off, but I couldn't have done none of that without the knowledge of my nutritionist, you know. So like, and it's the same with my coach. Like, if the level of detail that these coaches go into is just crazy. Like my boss, which is probably one of the smartest blokes I've ever encountered. I've never told him this, so if he does watch this, he'll probably he'll
love that.
He'll love it. But he's just like, it's crazy the detail I get. Do you know what I mean? Sometimes it can be too much.
Yeah.
But as soon as I'm like, oh, I don't really get that, boss, he'll leave it and he'll come back again at another point and he'll break down the bit I didn't get. And it's just like the care and the attention and the work rate you get from a support staff.
Yeah.
And that goes from physios to, like, we've got team doctors, we've got psychologists, nutritionists, coaches. There's no stone unturned. Do you know what I mean? And it's like, as long as you've got the application to tie all them together, there's no reason you shouldn't achieve it. And that's why, like, in the world of sport nowadays, it's not a blind spot that the doping's a thing, and a lot of countries around the world that use it or promote it and use it on a state base. But that's why, like, British athletes, I firmly believe if you've got the due diligence and the awareness and the drive to achieve, you will achieve as a British athlete, because the infrastructure you have in this country is crazy.
Yeah.
It's second to none. Like, there's nothing you can't tap into, whether it's like CPD stuff or it's directly sport related, or, do you know what I mean? Like, if I've got a niggle somewhere in my shoulder or something like that, I'm at a booper and I'm getting a scan. I'm getting that sorted immediately. It's just crazy, the infrastructure. So that's why I say you can have all the talent in the world, but if you haven't got the ability to pin these together, then people are going to start going past you. And that's why I guess there's that matrix in place to make sure to remind athletes of, one, the privileged place we're in to have all that care and attention, but two, it's like, don't waste it.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
As long as you've, like you said, as long as you've got the sort of the meat and veg, you know, the basic things, everyone in your life that's just, you know, adding their little bits all the way, that's where the difference is made.
100%.
So when you're going to meets now, how do you usually perform? Are you hitting PBs? Does the occasion sort of give you that extra boost?
Yeah, so it's important. Like, a big thing has been as I said earlier, with the surgeries I had last year, I wasn't really in shape to go anywhere and produce PBs. I was going to places trying to stay in one piece and just get a performance in.
Yeah.
Because within our sport, you have mandatory events, and if you don't go to the mandatory events, you can't go to the Olympics or the Paralympics at the end of it.
Right.
So it's very, and it's cutthroat. Like, if you don't go, you don't get it unless you've got like a validation from the governing body that they're like, right, yeah, that's good enough reason not to. So yeah, last year I was sort of getting to meets and I was relying almost on the occasion, on like Birmingham Commonwealth Games, probably was in the worst shape of my life. Didn't PB, but was the best occasion of my life because I had hundreds of people watching me, chanting my name, and I ended up lifting a weight that we was all like, there's no way we've got that at this comp.
That's that.
It was only 215 kilos. As I said, it wasn't anywhere near my
Only,
but it was nowhere near my PB, and it was like. But we leading up to that comp, we would have been happy with a 205.
Yeah,
but it just.
I'll be happy with a 205 any day of the week.
Something come out of me on that day, but obviously now, fast forward a year. Touch wood again. I'm touching a lot of wood today, but now I'm sat in a position where I'm flying, and the next we got Dubai in 4 weeks, and we got Cairo in the next at the start of November, and they're the ones I'm gonna be making a few statements. I hope, because as I said, I'm in the shape of my life at the minute, knocking out PB speeds, PB weights most weeks, and it's like. It's exciting times, but I guess, again, as I said, it comes down to earlier, it comes down to that minute and a half. The moments in time, if you got to get them right, and no one can do that except me. I mean, my support staff can make me the best athlete in the world in the gym, but they can't in that moment, it's down to me. And so now I've got six lifts effectively at these two different comps. So I've got 3 minutes to make sure that the last 3 years are worth it, playing catch up. Yeah,
you put all your effort in. So when you're coming into these competitions, then do you have sort of like a knowledge of your other competitors, like where they're, not necessarily where they're placing it, like previous things, because you should be able to get that easy, but like within their training, is there, are you finding out, like, is someone finding out Liam's just pushed like 225 or whatever you're. What are you doing now? What is your PB currently?
I don't know about that yet, just mate. Just not pre-worlds, but yeah, I'm way above the 220 mark at the minute.
Okay,
getting above it. That was my current PB. But as you're going on to there, like, I'm not really bothered about what anyone else is doing, because at the end of the day,
it's you lifting that bar. It's you against you.
They can do what they want.
Yeah.
If I'm not strong enough on that day to lift a weight I need to lift, then why does it matter if I know he can do that? Do you know what I mean? And I think, like, and I definitely, when I was going through all my surgeries and whatnot last year, I started doing that a lot. I started looking at comps going, I'm never going to lift that weight. I'm not good enough to lift that weight. And that created a doubt in my head that I'd never had before. And I remember sitting down with my boss, like they're all leaving me behind. I'm rubbish. Yeah. And I honestly started to believe it. And it wasn't until I started seeing a clinical psych mid last year when she was like, this is just all stories you're telling yourself.
Yeah.
And that's what I say to people. Like, you could tell me 1,000 times here and now that I'm the strongest man in the world. If I tell myself once that I'm not going to believe you.
Yeah.
And that's one thing I've learned, and my boss and my psychologist have taught me that. It's like, we tell ourselves stories all the time. You got to make sure you're telling yourself the right story and you're not believing the bullshit, disempowering ones that we do tell ourselves. Because I got into a state of that because I was on and off the surgery table all year. I just started to believe I was useless. I was like, I'm not worthy. I don't deserve my place at this table.
Yeah.
So, and that all come from watching others. Because I was sitting still, I couldn't do anything because I'm recovering. I was watching others, and the stories I was starting to tell myself were so catastrophic, and I started to believe them. And they were so far away from my reality. They were so far from the reality of my division of me, but they started to creep into my reality, and they started to become real life. And I went through a phase where I couldn't get a good session out because I was just like, do you know what I mean? I was just dead on my feet almost, and it was like. And that's when I say to people, it's just, and that's what I'm trying to be present. I'm trying to do my thing now. I'm not worrying about the end of COVID. I'm not worried about what's happened a year ago. And I think in the last sort of 20 weeks, since probably the start of this year, it's just, I'm flying. I'm flying, and that's all come from just changing the way I'm viewing everything. Like, I'm not worried about what other people are doing. Don't get me wrong, there's still a little eye there and there. If I see something, I'm like, all right, he's got that. But you know what? It's me against me at the end of the day. And it's like, the minute I started to believe the catastrophic stories I was telling myself, the only thing that was getting worse was my performance.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And that's what a lot of people don't get. It's just like a lot of the things we think and see, like what the things we see is just perspective, right? And the things we think and we hear are just opinions.
Yeah.
Don't make them true.
Yeah, 100%.
Do you know what I mean? And it's like, no matter people, where they are in society, whether they're top of the tree or the bottom of the tree, their opinion's an opinion. Just because they're important, don't make it right, you know? So it's...
people have opinions about you that don't even know you.
Exactly, mate. And it's just like... But them opinions can draw people down, and they can make people do things they would never do. And that's why it's just important to go... Just like, I think for me, we use a thing called gym aware. And it's data. You can't. There's no skew in data. There's no numbers are numbers, and that's there, and that's what we live off. Because I can zip a weight up, like I can bench a weight, and I'll go, oh, Jesus, that was heavy. Then I look at the gym aware, and it's like the fastest I've ever done it. And I'm like, it weren't that heavy. And then straight away you're like, I'm telling myself something that's not actually happening. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Because even though we see things, it's still a perspective. It still doesn't make it truth. Do you know what I mean? And so, it's, that's one of the big things, to be fair. Just the stories. Make sure you're on top of what you're telling yourself, because, it can be a road to some dark places. Yeah.
100%, yeah. And staying out your own head is massive. So with your training, obviously you said you're 4 weeks out from Worlds.
Yes.
So how does your training sort of, do you pyramid up, or, I can only compare to sort of, marathon runners where they have their peak and then they taper off as they come towards the thing. Is that a similar sort of situation for you, or are you lifting as heavy as you can every session, sort of right up until you go?
So you're picking so right now it's like, you're picking and choosing your big sessions. So it's like, for example, this week, I'll just go based on this week, like Friday's the big session this week. Fridays, we've got 7 singles. So we're looking to move some big tin on Friday. So Monday and Wednesday have been tapered right down. They're still working. You're still working. They're still doing what they need to do. You're still getting everything you need to get out of that session, but you're just leaving yourself with so much less to recover from.
Right.
You're still doing enough in them sessions where adaptation can take place. Your muscles still know they've worked, but your muscle doesn't know whether it's needs to bench 200 kilos or 160 kilos. All your muscle,
or less for normal people,
or 100 kilos. But it's like, all your brain knows is, I've got to recruit as much as I can to get this off my chest.
Yeah.
It doesn't go, there's 200 kilos on a pile, let me recruit a little bit more. Yeah. It doesn't work like that. So it's like, so this week we've kept Monday and Tuesday strong enough where adaptation's taking place. You're recruiting what you need to recruit, but you're not leaving too much to recover from 2 days later. Because it's like, and if I compare it to like the normal, not say normal, but the everyday gym goers, like it's a classic thing of lifting heavy as you can every single day and then going, why am I not getting stronger? Because that's not how it works. Do you know what I mean? Because your body can't physically lift its limits every single day of the week. Yeah. It just can't do it, because to recover from one session, ideally you need 72 hours. So if you're going in the gym and today I'm benching as hard as I can, then tomorrow I'm going in and I'm benching as hard as I can, and Wednesday I'm benching as hard as I can, you're eventually just going to hit a brick wall, because your body can't recover from that. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? So it's, and that's what they're striking that balance. So yeah, we're hoping the week's done now, other than the big one tomorrow. So we're hoping we've timed it right. But yeah, as I said earlier on in the pod, I've got full trust in my coach, and I don't doubt any approach he has. So it's I've got full faith that I'm going to rock some big weights tomorrow morning.
Yeah, good. Happy days. So I do this with every guest at the end of the episodes. You just want to give out your advice to someone, whether obviously they're, had a tragedy, that they're with their thing, for looking forward to the future, or like someone who's getting into lifting now, or just general life advice.
Yeah, well, like a big thing for me, and it's something that I've, as I've been working with my psychologist over the last year, it is about like emotions and controlling your emotions. And I think in a world where everyone's so eager to label everything with something, and it's like we lose track of what we are as human beings. And what I mean by that is human beings are emotional people. Well, most are highly strong on different emotions, and being nervous, being happy, being sad, being angry is all completely normal.
Yeah.
It's all completely normal emotions, and you don't have to be sad without. You can be sad without being depressed, and you can be nervous without being anxious. And I think there's such a pressure to label things these days. It's just like take yourself out of it, take a step back, and realize emotions are emotions, right? And don't go too deeply into the emotions you're thinking, because I wake up some days and I'm sad. I see, like, for example, I had a little thing a little while ago where I woke up and I for the first time I'd noticed my legs have got smaller, and I was thinking about it, and then, but then I'm just thinking, this is just fine. I'm fine being sad. I can be sad and not depressed, and then I think that's a big thing. And mental health's such an important thing. And it's important to keep the top 3 inches as healthy as possible. And I feel like if you're constantly searching for labels for everything without just going, do you know what? I'm just a bit sad today.
Yeah.
Or I'm just a bit angry today. Or this is making me nervous. Then, do you know what I mean? You start going down rabbit holes you don't need to go down. So that, I think that would be my biggest piece of advice. And it's something that I've learned throughout my recovery and my sport, is just like, just be aware of your emotions, but don't let them rule your brain. And
Yeah.
I've definitely had periods of time, even recently and just last year, where my emotions rule my brain, and I was thinking about things that I was just like, this is crazy. But since seeing a psychologist, I'm like, I'm just sad.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And yeah, that'll be my biggest thing. Yeah, don't just be present. Be okay with being sad. Be okay with being happy. Be okay with being angry, and don't look to seek to feel like there's a need to label stuff. And obviously, with some people, it is a chronic thing, and they need to get the help they need. But with a lot of people, we create problems that aren't necessarily there, just with our thoughts, and as I said earlier, with the stories we tell ourselves about the emotions we're feeling, right? So yeah, that'll probably be my bit of advice, and to train hard.
100%, always. Well, thank you very much for coming on the podcast today, Liam.
No worries, man.
It's been an absolute pleasure listening to your story and, you know, your trials and tribulations, and just how headstrong you are, and I think you will achieve everything you set out to achieve, because you've got that mindset. Do you want to give everyone your socials again?
Yeah, so my Instagram, which is my main place to find me, is _Liam8. And yeah, I've just launched a TikTok, which is Strength in Adversity, but that's just getting off the ground at the minute. So yeah, the main one is _Liam8 on Instagram.
Perfect. Well, thank you again.
No worries, mate. Cheers for having me.
Catch you later, everybody.